Hello and welcome to Edison TV. Today I'm joined by John Mills, Chief Executive Officer at Xaar. Xaar are a leading developer and manufacturer of inkjet printheads, specifically targeting industrial applications. The company has been on a turnaround process for some time now, but there are some interesting lead indicators that suggest that better times might be on the horizon. John, many thanks for joining me today.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for inviting me.
Can you start by giving us an introduction to Xaar, an overview of the business's capabilities and markets?
Yeah, as you said, Xaar manufacture inkjet printheads, so industrial printheads, and through its 30-year history, it's had a couple of periods where it's been very, very strong in certain markets like ceramics and wide format graphics. But for those who know Xaar, typically they'll have seen the ups and downs over the years. And I joined Xaar about 6 years ago, and right at the time when the company was really in a lot of trouble. And I think the problem at the time was twofold. Firstly, it really focused on the ceramics market for a number of years, and that market just disappeared. And secondly, it was really trying to compete with our big competitors with things that they do very well. So they print high resolution, low viscosity inks. So companies like Edison and Fuji and Ricoh and Kyocera, these are huge Japanese corporations that manufacture at a very low cost. They have huge reach. They have a fantastic reputation. And a small company like Xaar trying to compete head to head with us was never really going to work. And so when I joined, nobody was really working with Xaar or developing products with our heads. And so really when I started, having known the technology for about 30 years, I knew that if we could get the commercial offering right and we could actually fix some of the technical challenges in the business, then we really had some great technology. And the premise of what Xaar can do is that we can print fluids that the others can't. And that really comes down to two parameters. One, how thick the material is, which is a measure of viscosity. So, viscosity of 1 is water and the viscosity of 100 is like engine oil. And our competitors, some of them can only go up to about 5 or 6. Others can maybe go up to 20 or 30. But we have applications where we're over 100. And so there's a whole range of viscosity, so how thick the fluid is that we can print that no one else can. The second element is how much pigment you can have in the ink. Our competitors, typically less than 10% of the fluid would be pigment, and therefore for every drop you put down, there's a certain amount of colour, there's a certain amount of functionality. We can put 5 times as much of that into the fluids. So for every drop that we put down, we can have 5 times as much pigment or 5 times as much functionality. And so what we look for is applications where the end user needs a fluid that has certain properties. And if those properties can only be delivered with a high viscosity, high pigment loaded fluid, then we're the only company that can print that fluid. And therefore, we're not competing with the others because they literally can't do what we can do. So what we've, when I started, what we did was really to look at the value proposition of Xaar. What can we do? Where do we focus the business? And that was really on those 2 elements. And now today we've developed a value proposition for each of the industrial markets. And so if you look at across those markets, there are 10 sorts of major categories. In each category, we have defined a value proposition based around viscosity and pigment loading that's really compelling. And we now have 21 different markets where we have customers. So if you compare that to Xaar historically, that's focused on 1 or 2 markets, we now have customers in 21 markets. And I think that's the big difference from Xaar today to Xaar historically. And we now have over 100 customers that are actually developing products using our printheads. And they're at different phases of that life cycle, because it typically can take 4 or 5 years for a company to go from meeting Xaar initially to launching the product. And some of those companies have launched, some of them are about to launch, and some of them are some point along that journey. And so when we look at the pipeline of opportunities that we have, we can see these companies that have products that are going to launch at particular dates. And that's the reason why we feel confident in the revenue growth over the coming years, because it's not like we need something to happen tomorrow. The future revenue is kind of already sitting there in the pipeline. It's not really visible to the outside world, but that's the basis of the confidence we have in the business.
Right. And so where do you see the biggest growth opportunities? You've already started to make some good progress in jewelry wax. Can you talk through that?
Wax is a fascinating area. Wax was around about a £20 million market that was dominated by Xerox. And we worked with the global number 2 company called Flashforge to develop the next generation of wax printing machine, which is predominantly for making jewelry. And we spent 3 years working with them to produce the product. Because of our capability, we can print waxes that others can't. So we can produce higher quality jewelry that requires less finishing, less waste, and just more intricate jewelry. And that really is a significant value proposition in that market. They launched their product in April 2023. Their competitors then immediately came to us and said, we cannot compete with that quality. We need your printhead. And over that time, 4 other OEMs have now adopted our printhead and switched to our product. So if you look on the market today, we are now the printhead of choice. I think we have, we haven't seen the official data, but it's well over 50% market share. And that's an example of where we've displaced an incumbent, not because we're cheaper, not because of anything, but because we can print fluids that enable the end application to be much better than the previous.
And turning towards automotive, an interesting application area is EV batteries. Can you talk through your developments there and your opportunities in that field?
EV batteries is really interesting because you've probably all seen EV, the rise of EV, and battery technology has moved on a long way. So there's now the new 800 volt technology, charges really quickly. That increased charging puts the battery through a thermal cycle. And batteries are in a car and it's vibrating around and they rub against each other. And the insulation layer today is a plastic film that's actually stuck onto the battery. And that plastic film, as it goes through heat cycles, effectively ends up cracking. If there's an air bubble behind it and it heats up, the air bubble can bring the delaminate the film. So over a period of time, that there is a failure mode in that coating, which could lead to safety concerns. We've been developing a dielectric coating which we can print onto the battery that replaces the film, and it's non-flammable. It doesn't crack. It's just a much better solution. And again, it's because we can do high viscosity fluids. And it's really interesting that if you think about, we're coming up to Christmas, and if you think about icing your cake, if you have very thin icing sugar and you're trying to put icing round the corner of the cake, round the corner, if it's really thin and runny, it'll just run off and your icing around the edge will be too thin. If you have really nice thick icing sugar, then you can coat around the corner and you'll get a nice thick piece of icing. That's exactly the same in the battery. The batteries are rectangular and they have lots of edges, and being able to print round those edges and maintain a minimum thickness at those edges really comes down to how viscous and how thick the fluid is. And so we can actually print and maintain the thickness around those edges in a single pass. Whereas if you're using a lower viscosity fluid, you might have to go over that edge 4 or 5 times to achieve the same thickness. So your productivity is much higher. So therefore, the high viscosity capability translates into higher productivity for the end user. And therefore, we are now the printhead of choice. There are about 10 production lines in the field. Some of the biggest names in battery manufacturing now have their first machine that's actually using our technology. And we're waiting to see if that technology gets adopted broadly, then they could roll that out across all new production lines, which would be really significant. I mean, the scale of that opportunity is similar to ceramics. So, we've got our fingers crossed that all of that goes really well. We can't say anything about the timing of it. I mean, the car industry is a notoriously slow industry to adopt new technologies, and we've been doing this now for 4 or 5 years. So everything looks positive. So yes, we're optimistic of adoption, but we will wait and we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. And you can also print directly to the car body. Are the dynamics for that industry similar to the EV batteries, or are they different?
Interesting. We started working with a company called Xaar, who are one of the major providers of car paint to the industry. They provide paint to Ford and various other major car manufacturers. Then they initially wanted to solve the problem of painting car roofs, and so we put our print heads on the end of a robot, and we developed jointly a version of car paint that we can inkjet print. And you can imagine that car paint is a pretty difficult thing to print, and again, our print heads can do things that no one else can. So we started doing that, and we successfully were painting car roofs. But actually, when you think about, you now have this digital capability, you can print anything. And it was quite soon that Xaar realized that actually we could offer the car industry the ability to put graphics onto the car. And again, putting that on a flat surface on the roof is relatively easy. But when you're trying to print on the door or on a pillar that comes down the side of the car on a vertical surface, the ink needs to be really thick in order to print so it doesn't drip. And again, so being able to print on a vertical surface without it dripping is a really key benefit that you can only do with high viscosity, thick fluids. And so the thing that really goes through all of these applications is that it's the fluid, the requirement for the fluid to be high viscosity or a high pigment loading that really drives the adoption of Xaar technology, where we're not competing with other companies. So they're not. We used to be known as a graphics company, but today it's more industrial coating than say standard graphics.
And then finally, a bit of a departure, I guess, but you're also working on a consumer inkjet printer opportunity, albeit with a partner that's familiar to you in FlashForge. Can you talk us through the pipeline there?
Yes, so FlashForge, we started working with them on the wax project, and we had in the background some of the engineers, sort of on a Friday afternoon type projects, put some of our smaller print heads into a little XY stage and made a little 3D printer. They might know about FDM, which is which is like having a fishing reel of cable that's heated and it goes round and round and you build up the but that tends to be single color. It tends to be relatively low resolution, but there are millions of those sold every year. This will be the world's first full color high resolution printer that you will be able to buy that will sit on your desk like a desktop printer. And you'll be able to, with AI, describe something. I would like a pink unicorn, and take that and you can print it out. You can take a photograph of your dog or something else, and the AI would then render that 2D image into a 3D model, and then you can print that. It will be launched in the near future, and we're very excited about that. We have no idea how successful it will be. It really comes down to the consumer. It could be a complete flop and they don't sell any, or it could be the latest greatest things and we're struggling to keep up with demand. So we will wait and see on that product, but that's quite an exciting opportunity as well.
Interesting. So what are the key milestones and lead indicators that we should be looking for to gauge your progress and your prospects from here?
6 years ago, ceramics revenue for replacement of printheads was still quite significant. So right, 30-40 million pounds worth of revenue. That really dropped to about 3 million for this year. And so we've lost all that revenue. And during that time, the new applications that we've talked about and the new launches have actually replaced that revenue. So internally, we feel really pleased about the growth in the new business. But if you're looking from the external perspective, many of the viewers today will look at Xaar, look at the revenue over the last 5-6 years and say, well, what have they been doing? Well, the reality is that for every million we added on of new business, we kind of lost in ceramics. Now that's got to the bottom. What we should see is that any further growth will now be visible in the top line. So you should start seeing, particularly within the printhead business, top line growth. And one of the legacies that we have from the boom in the ceramics world back in 2012-13 is that a huge amount of capacity was put into the business at that time. And over the last decade, that has been a real burden because we've had to carry that fixed cost. As we now see the revenue growing, that capacity, or the lacing capacity, really becomes an asset because we can actually deliver more than 3 times our current revenue from the existing equipment. So, as the top line grows, which will be the real thing that people should look out for over the next couple of years, is really to see how that top line grows, because at that point should start to see the revenue drop down to the bottom line.
And now turning towards your more traditional markets, you've got ceramics and packaging printing. What are the prospects for those parts of the business?
I mean, it's interesting because actually in ceramics, for the business that Xaar was in, I think that business is so commoditized, no one's making any money out of it. When I talk to the equipment manufacturers and the tile manufacturers and the ink manufacturers, it's become so commoditized, no one makes any money. What we've done is to look at how do we take our unique capabilities and reinvent ourselves in ceramics. So again, high viscosity and high pigment loading. So if you actually put twice as much pigment into the to the ink, and you increase the viscosity, what's really interesting is that a ceramic tile is porous, so the ink tends to soak into the tile, and a lot of the pigment goes with it, and you don't see it. So if you make the fluid high viscosity and it doesn't soak in, more of the pigment stays on the surface, so you need less ink for the same colour. And that gives you the ability to reduce the cost without actually reducing the amount of profit for the ink manufacturer. And that's a really important thing. So what we're finding now is that high viscosity fluids with high pigment loading in ceramics are offering differentiation in the market. So over the coming years, I don't ever see ceramics getting back to the heyday of 20, but I do see other applications in ceramics where the high viscosity capability we have does open up new opportunities. And I think the same in packaging, because that absorption factor is the same in corrugated board. So if you print on a piece of corrugated board with a water-based ink, it soaks in, the pigment goes with it, and it looks really washed out. High viscosity fluids sit on the surface, you can see the colour, and you can achieve the same colour with less than half of the ink. And that's a real value proposition that's not to do with the resolution or the price of the print. It's down to that ink just delivers a better performance than a low viscosity ink. And so in each of the markets that we are targeting, we really focus on why does that fluid deliver more value? Because as soon as we find that, then we have a value proposition in that market. If we can't find that, then we tend to leave it because we're not going to compete against the big guys.
And then finally, turning towards the financials, margins at Xaar have been quite volatile historically. You've recorded 20% plus margins in the past, but equally been loss-making. What should we think about in terms of your revenue profile, the resilience of the business, and also the margins going forward?
I mean, it sounds oversimplified, but volume fixes most of the challenges. We've had a huge fixed cost in the factory, and we've had to really cut operating costs to try and keep the company profitable over that time. And as the revenue has really been flat for the reasons I talked about a few minutes ago, the profit has kind of done the same thing. What really needs to happen over the coming years is that these new applications come through. We will see the revenue grow. As the revenue grows, the amortization of that fixed cost is over a bigger number of print heads. Therefore, the margin will increase, and so therefore the profitability will increase. So I think if you take a medium-term view, I think that margins will improve, profitability will improve. So the key. So I think that will happen naturally as a function of volume. So really, what I think people should be looking out for is, when are these new applications coming through? When do we start to see top line growth? And every time I've tried to predict timing, I've been wrong, because we don't control the OEMs. There are factors which mean that they could suddenly delay 6 months because of some other thing within their business. So we don't control that. But once we're in, we're very sticky. It's very difficult to get somebody to change print heads. It's like going to a car manufacturer and saying, change the engine. Changing engine in the car is a big deal. Changing print head is a big deal. So the fact that they've done it for our print head says a lot about the advantages of our print head. But once we're in, that stickiness helps us going forward. So once we've got an application, we really need to focus on keeping ahead of the competition, keeping that application, which I think Xaar's not done very well in historic times, having been number one in ceramics, then losing that market, I think, through really not focusing on supporting the customers. So we really try to make sure that we have a very, very strong reputation for support and partnership with the customers, to win the customer in the first place, but also to kind of keep them for the long term. And so yeah, we feel good about where we are and the prospects for the business.
John, many thanks for joining me today. Fascinating discussion.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dan. Thank you.